Okay, so today we're talking about line segments again, but this time we're talking about Pythagorean theorem and graphing. So just recall line segment is something that can be measured, and we have our certain notations here. Okay, um, well, when we talk about segments and finding their distance, if we have the segments on a graph, so this is a little bit different from the last 2 days. Now our segments on the graph, and it has special coordinates. Okay, and we can use the Pythagorean theorem, right? The Pythagorean theorem to solve for our distance. It creates a right triangle, and we want to find the hypotenuse. Okay, the equation is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b can be interchanged as the legs. C must always be the hypotenuse, and that's usually the distance that we're looking for. So, excuse me, a is like the horizontal distance, like right here, and B will be your vertical distance, and vice versa. But this will always be your C in this picture here. Okay. So in this example, the hypotenuse is between the points -1, 6 and 5, -3. You can find their legs by counting. You literally just count down here, right, using your graph and count to the right, and that'll be the length. Now, I want to point out right here that this, even though it says -6, it's actually a absolute value, which makes it +6. Okay, so just be careful with that because whenever we talk about distance, that is always going to be a positive value, an absolute value. Now, you can kind of see what they're doing. They're finding the difference between the y values, because y values is your vertical distance, and the x values as your x, right? That makes sense because your x axis goes left and right, and your y axis goes up and down. So they're taking the differences of your y's. Notice the 6 and the -3, and then the x's down here, -1 and 5. But this should be an absolute value, so it should be a +6. Okay, so we would say A is 9, B is 6. Again, absolute value. And apply the Pythagorean theorem where we're looking for c squared. So c squared is going to be our distance squared, right? So eventually we want to get to c. So this kind of shows you the exact steps what to do, right? 81 is 9 squared, 6 squared is 36, c squared equals c squared, and we just work our way through there. So make sure you read through that part real quick and pause, okay? In order to undo that square, we have to take the square root, and that's what this symbol is right here. That's the square root. And just in case you're on your calculator, you're on that TI Inspire, it's this little button, right? That's the squaring something. And in order to get the square root, you want to hit the second button. It's a yellow button, I believe. And then you'll hit that button again. Okay. So find the distance between A and B. So I'm sorry if you can't see it on your thing, right? What you're going to want to do is count, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's going to be our vertical distance. That's our Y value. So we'll call that B. And notice we can do 5 minus -1 to give us 6. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's our 10. That's going to be our A value. And if we did -3 minus 7, right? -3 minus 7, that gives me -10. But it's the absolute value. And that's how we get +10, right? So now this is what we're looking for, C, our distance between points A and B. So we can say 10 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. And then you can use your handy dandy calculator, and 10 squared is going to be 100, and 6 squared is going to be 36. Okay, so 10 squared is 100, 6 squared is 36. So you should get 136 when you combine, right? So 136 equals c squared. Now, because this is c squared, right, we have to take the square root. Okay, so we say 136, and then we take the square root. Okay, and when we take the square root, let's go ahead and round. So we get c is equal to, and you get a lot of decimals, 11.6619. And you should round it to 3 decimal places, but let's go ahead and round to 1 decimal place. Okay, so if we're rounding to 1 decimal places, we go over to this number tells this number what to do. So since that's higher than 5, that goes up. So we're going to say that the distance between A and B is going to be 11.7. Okay. All right. Awesome. And we'll continue this video here in just a couple of minutes.